Welcome back to Unlock Your Creativity, and today's subject is one that divides the community at times. Given that Creation Club has just come on board as well, there's been a lot of furor about this. So it was one that I've been asked a couple of times, and I think I will try and do a very balanced view of this question today, and hopefully it gives you a good rounded view on what you want to use when you're building in Fallout 4. So let's get into the question. So the question is, to use mods or not, what is your advice? And as most of you know, if you watch the channel, I do use mods. I use mods a lot, and it's predominantly because I'm doing a channel which does building, and to give me the kind of maximum opportunity to be creative, mods seem to have so many options for me to do that, to achieve that. Did I start with mods? No, I didn't. I started with the vanilla game, and we'll go through each of the different sections and what's available, and I'll talk about where I kind of started my journey with Fallout 4 and building and where I'm now. This is going to be mostly just a discussion video today, and I will throw some building footage in with it. So this was a good subject to cover because it really made me stop and think what's available for us in Fallout 4. And as you can see, we have a lot of options that are available to us as far as building is concerned. We have the vanilla part of the game, which is really just a base game. We have a ton of free mods, a lot of free mods. You have your DLC content, which throws in a whole lot of different objects, and then you have the Creation Club, which is pretty new, so which is really paid content. I guess the last two are both paid content if you really want to be really want to look at that. So we are pretty lucky. I think the Fallout 4 community is pretty lucky, and certainly the building community is very lucky. I don't think that truly Bethesda anticipated that the building sector of the game would be so popular, and so they started with some base items and relied heavily, I think, on the community, to the modding community, mostly the modding development community to fill that gap. And once we get into the mod section, I'm going to take this each point at a time, but once we get into the mod section, you'll see where I started and where I am now. So vanilla, the vanilla game, the starting base that everybody probably started with when they first started their journey building in Fallout 4. And this, I think, is one of the underrated parts of the game, because if you didn't have this vanilla option, then nobody would have even looked at building. And if this wasn't reasonably good quality, and I know there are arguments for and against, but if this wasn't reasonable quality, we wouldn't have got addicted like most of us have to building. So this is a good starting point for everyone in the game, and certainly where I started. And I think what you find after a while is there is a limitation to the vanilla, and I think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have that limitation, because it makes you want to do more and find more options. But the vanilla part of the game that Bethesda put together is pretty good, and I think it also covers those people who want to play the game, and settlement building is part of what they do, but really they're not builders. They will do a bit of settlement building, but really they're more interested in the questing part of Fallout 4. So some of it is a necessary evil. For a lot of us, it is a starting point, and certainly you learn a lot with the vanilla part of the game, how to fit things together. You certainly, the creative among us, learn how to use a lot of these items to do things probably they weren't designed to do. And I'm thinking now of the pillar, for instance, the rugs, and how they have helped us a lot to really push the vanilla options well beyond probably what the developers thought we could do. So, good starting point. And there's still a lot of people that just find it very invigorating and a great challenge just to continue to use vanilla pieces and see what they can build. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So if you're just getting into building in Fallout 4, give it a go. Have a try with what the game just gives you. Obviously, you know, there's the whole thing as well with achievements. And, you know, we'll get into the mod, talk about that a little bit more when we get in the mod section. But, you know, this is, I think we all forget, the seasoned among us that have done a heap of building, forget that this is really was Bethesda's first real serious go at a building module for the game. I think there was a little bit in Fallout 3, but essentially they hadn't tried it before. So this was really their first iteration of an idea. So I don't think they got it badly wrong. I can't remember what, I must be honest, I can't remember what's in vanilla these days because I'm so entrenched in mods. But yep, good starting point. And one that if you only want to build every so often, well, there's no need to go any further than this. So let's move on. So, free mods. And I know when I first started using Fallout 4 and knew that there was mods available, I was a bit cautious and a bit apprehensive about it. You read a lot, you hear a lot about what mods do or don't do and how they break the game and one thing and another. So I was pretty cautious when I first started using mods. Essentially, at that point, I wasn't a builder. I was purely playing Fallout 4 for the questing, and so I really started with things like map enhancements. There's another mod that has improves the speech, the way that the speech is laid out. Having Dogmeat as a constant companion. So that's really where I started with mods. Dipped my toe in the water, so to speak, and seeing how they went and seeing what happened. And you know, we will talk a little bit in a minute about some of the struggles that I've had with mods. And certainly they're not without the risk, but I've got to say, overall, I don't have too many problems with the mods I run. It has taken me a while to figure out the order of them, but it's opened up so many possibilities and so much creative potential that I couldn't probably run the game without mods. Now, I have done an entire playthrough without any mods as well, and so there's nothing wrong with not running mods. Just for me and what I do and what I produce as far as YouTube goes, and for me personally, this is the choice that I've made for me playing the game. And don't forget, it's your choice on how you want to play the game and what you want to use and what you don't want to use. So when you open the mods up, you will get a warning message right there that you play at your own risk, and I think this is what scares a lot of people. And yes, there are mods that might give you a problem. So you can see there's that one at the top. Unofficial Fallout 4 patch is one of the ones that I started with, and it just fixes all the bugs that Bethesda haven't in the game. And that was one of the first things that when I knew that was available, I had to have it. You also have a pretty generous limit on what you can run as far as the total amount of mods. I think it's about 2 gig on Xbox, and so that's good. Let me talk a little bit about a few things that you may be a bit apprehensive about. Number one, as soon as you switch on your first mod, your achievements switch off. So if you're into completion and getting achievements and working on them, then mods probably are not for you. You can switch them on and off, and that's what I decided to do. There is an option to disable all mods, and that's what I do if I'm doing a vanilla playthrough, and switch them back on. That can cause problems with items disappearing, but the majority of the time everything will be back in place. The other thing that I have had some issues with when I've been using mods, and it's a learning process, is just the overall order that they need to be in, how compatible some mods are with others, etc. And that's where you'll run into the majority of your problems. Some mods are very processor hungry, and playing on a console, obviously there is a limited amount of processor capacity for you to work with. So I've got around that now by using an external drive on my console, and the game generally plays from, or a lot of my games play from an external hard drive, and that seems to have fixed it. I'm not going to lie, I have run into frame rate issues in one thing and another, and I've had to reinstall the game once, and it's hard to tell whether it's the mod you're running or whether it's the game. Don't forget, Fallout games traditionally do have bugs in them and glitches in them, and that's where that Fallout 4 unofficial patch helps a lot to fix things. One of the other things that you will notice, and it's very determined on how many mods you're actually running. I'm running a disgusting amount of mods, and I know that there are other people that are running substantially more mods than I am. But one of the things that will happen is that the load time for your menus will become longer, and that's also very dependent on how much you're building at a particular settlement as well. So just be warned that it will increase the time you've got to wait to get into the build menu. I think when I was building it, the castle towards the end, that build menu load time blew out to about 3.5 to 4 minutes. So it is one of those things that you're penalised a little bit sometimes for using mods. But anyway, my advice is, if you're thinking about mods but you're a bit unsure about them, try a couple and just see how it goes. If it causes you issues, just disable them or uninstall them and then go back to what you were doing. But I actually don't think there's a huge drama we're running mods, to be honest. You've just got to have a little bit more knowledge, and there's a little bit more involved when you're doing it. Of course, it opens up a whole new world for you and a whole lot of items and a whole lot of possibilities, and for me, that's where I'm at the moment. I'd rather have all those options and have to manage mods, and managing isn't as hard as you might think. So hopefully that's given you some ideas, both on the plus and the negative side about mods. But there is just so much content that you have access to, and it won't cost you 1 cent to do it, and just gives you this whole new world to play with. Some of the mods that I run as well, like Workshop Rearranged, and I'm a big advocate for Workshop Rearranged. I've made no secret of that. Rearranges your menus for you and actually puts things in logical places, where I think they should be, and fill in that gap where Bethesda, again, it can't be too hard on Bethesda because it's the first go at playing around with the building concept and seeing how it went. So you can't be too hard on them, but there are a lot of gaps in what they produced to start with, and the mods can help you with that, and certainly Workshop Rearranged is one of those mods. If you look at Workshop Rearranged in the master plan, for example, they help with the snapping, improving your snapping of items and stuff like that. So the last thing I'd like to say is, if you do make the decision to go down the mod rabbit hole, usually there's no coming back, guys. Sorry. It is highly addictive when you get into mods, and you rely heavily on so many things to be there that personally I don't think there is any coming back once you've started using mods. It just gives you so many opportunities. So hopefully that's given you a rounded view of where I see mods and some of the positives and negatives. So we'll move on to our third point, and that's DLC content. And I've got to say, Bethesda traditionally have had a good track record in producing good DLC content, and Fallout 4 is no exception. You can see there's a whole lot of options there as far as DLC. I've got all of these and I love them for various reasons, but what this does is it adds a whole lot of new content in, plus a whole lot of quests, a whole lot of new worlds to go and explore, and it's probably a good alternative if you can afford it. Generally what I do is I wait until each of those individually come onto sale with Xbox and buy them that way. You know, if you want to go the hog and buy the season pass, you do get a little bit of a discount, I guess. But it adds all these building materials to your vanilla options, such as the barn tab, which we're seeing here, the warehouse, obviously the concrete tab, I think, is another one. Whole lot of options that you didn't have before, and plus it doesn't interfere with your achievements, so maybe it's a good alternative to running mods, depending on how involved or invested you are in the building section of Fallout 4. This could be a good option for you, and I like the fact that it encourages you, and I'll take Far Harbor as an example. It encourages you to play the game, because the more that you play the game, if you go to Far Harbor and start to do the quests and stuff, it starts unlocking all these different items for you to use. So it's a good alternative from mods, and it just gives you a ton of content. Some of the content, though, I've got to say, is fantastic. Some of the content I'll probably never ever use in my lifetime, and I'm thinking of all those factory the factory content. I've recently just built an arena, my first attempt at doing an arena build, and it gives you lots of options. DLC content gives you lots of options for that, and again, if you mix and match these, and if you're creative, you can DLC content might be just enough for you to continue to be creative in Fallout 4. And finally, I'll get to the last point on the list, and that's of course the very controversial Creation Club. And I'm not going to go over where I sit and what my opinion is on Creation Club. I'm going to leave that alone. I have a video, if you want to see that I made a few weeks ago on how I feel about Creation Club. I have spoke to a number of people in the community since, and I have had a number of different points of view, and I respect those points of view, and I think there's some validity in what a number of people were saying. They're not calling them paid mods. What they're calling them is mini DLCs, and again, it fits along with point 3 with DLC content. If mods are just not for you, and you really are very scared about running them in the game and breaking your console or breaking the game, then the last two in Creation Club might be the right option for you, and it is there, and it's designed to add some additional content into the game for you, without you having to even look at the free mod arena. So again, it's probably an alternative for you, and certainly for our friends that play on PlayStation 4. I hope that they start developing a nice amount of content for you guys that you can't access otherwise. So there you go, guys. That's really all I had to say today in Unlock Your Creativity. I think I've probably missed a whole lot of points, and I probably could spend an hour talking about this. I think to answer the question, to use mods or not, I think the answer for me, I've tried to give you all the different alternatives that you have. These are obviously, you can mix and match them as you see fit. I think the answer is what works for you. What are you trying to achieve with Fallout 4? And if you're a builder, what do you want to achieve from building in Fallout 4? How serious are you? How addicted are you? And it should answer the question for you. Again, this is just a game that you should be having a lot of fun with. getting out of the game what you want to get out of it. As long as you're enjoying it, it really doesn't matter. So that's it for me for today. Unlock your creativity. I've probably got one more episode to go before I run out of things to say, which is unusual for me, I know. But anyway, it's certainly an enjoyable series to put together, and thank you so much for contributing to that. Without your questions, I wouldn't even have this series running. So thanks for supporting the channel as ever. If you enjoyed this, leave a like. I would love to hear your comments on this subject. I'm sure I'm going to get a few, and it's always a healthy thing to get different points of view and lots of comments. Thanks, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the big red button, and have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.